China warns U.S. arms sales to Taiwan, speeding up threat of war. Syria to launch a new currency on the 1st of January. Hello, good afternoon, and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mohana Priya, and you're watching World Today. China on Thursday criticized the latest U.S. weapons deal with Taiwan, saying the sale was speeding up the threat of war in the Taiwan Strait. Last week, the U.S. announced $11.1 billion in arms sales to Taiwan, the biggest ever U.S. weapons package for the island.
美方公然宣布巨额售台先进武器计划，严重违反一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报，严重损害中国主权、安全和领土完整，严重破坏台海和平稳定，向台独分裂势力发出严重错误信号。中方对此坚决反对，强烈谴责。
Guo also urged the U.S. to immediately stop arming Taiwan, as he stated that the move will only backfire. The Taiwan arms sales announcement is the second under U.S. President Donald Trump's current administration and comes as Beijing ramps up its military and diplomatic pressure against Taiwan, whose government rejects Beijing's sovereignty claims. The proposed arms sales cover 8 items, including HIMARS rocket systems, howitzers, javelin and anti-tank missiles, Altius loitering munition drones and parts for other equipment. Japanese citizens held rallies outside the headquarters of the Liberal Democratic Party and the National Diet Building in Tokyo, protesting Japan's weapons export policies. The ruling Liberal Democratic Party and its coalition partner, the Japan Innovation Party, agreed at a meeting to revise the implementation guidelines of the 3 principles on transfer of defense equipment and technology. They agreed to lift restrictions that limit defense equipment transfers to 5 non-combat purposes. They plan to submit the proposal to the cabinet in February next year. Demonstrators chanted slogans calling for a complete ban on arms exports. They denounced the ruling parties and demanded Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi and the cabinet to step down.
基本的には私たちはやっぱり憲法9条の精神に基づいて武器の輸出そのものをやめて昔のようにやっぱ武器は禁止するっていう政策を取ってほしいっていうふうに求めてあまりにも軍事偏重のこの政策に対してこれで私たちの命守れないんじゃないかっていうことをやっぱりみんなにとじゃあどういう方法かっていうことも含めて訴えていきたいなとは思ってます。
Now, the second day of the Thailand-Cambodia General Border Committee Secretariat meeting began at the Thai side of the border in Chanthaburi province. About 30 delegates from each side engaged in the peace talks. A video footage showed Thai negotiators being greeted by their Cambodian counterparts at the venue with tight security measures in place. The Cambodian Ministry of National Defense said in a press release that the parties discussed preparations for the upcoming 3rd Special General Border Committee meeting scheduled for tomorrow. The Thailand-Cambodia border clashes reignited on the 7th of December, with both sides accusing the other of initiating the attack. More than 100 civilians have since been killed and hundreds of thousands evacuated. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had a phone conversation with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and President Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner to discuss the end of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Zelensky noted that both sides have good ideas for lasting peace. He stressed that Ukraine is working around the clock to bring closer the end to the conflict and to ensure that all documents and steps are realistic, effective and reliable. He said the two sides discussed certain substantive details on the ongoing work, adding that they have good ideas that can work towards a shared outcome. He expressed hope that the understandings and the ideas discussed can be useful. The latest development came after Zelensky recently unveiled a 20-point draft peace plan, which was agreed on by US and Ukraine and is being reviewed by Russia. Israeli strikes near the Syrian border and in the country's south killed at least 3 people. Despite a November 2024 ceasefire that was supposed to end the hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah, Israel has kept up strikes on Lebanon. The health ministry said at least 2 people were killed due to an Israeli strike on a vehicle in the town of Haush al-Sayed Ali in the Hermel district. It was a location in northeast Lebanon near the Syrian border. The ministry later reported that another person was killed in an Israeli strike in Majal Salim, the country's south. More than 340 people have been killed by Israeli fire in Lebanon since the ceasefire. Under heavy U.S. pressure and fears of expanded Israeli strikes, Lebanon has committed to disarming Hezbollah, starting with the south. Lebanon's army plans to complete the disarmament south of the Litani River, about 30 kilometers from the border with Israel, by the year's end. Israeli settlers who seized Palestinian land have expanded an illegal settlement outpost in the city of Nablus in the northern part of the occupied West Bank. In a statement, the legal organization Al-Baidar said that the settler groups added prefabricated houses to an illegal settlement outpost established on Mount Karkafa between the towns of Akraba and Jurish, southeast of Nablus. It said through this action, Israelis seizing Palestinian land aim to annex new areas belonging to Palestinians. The statement highlighted that this step is a continuation of the expansion of illegal settlement outposts on Palestinian land, further endangering Palestinian communities in the area. Approximately 451,000 Israelis in the occupied West Bank and around 230,000 in East Jerusalem are living on seized Palestinian land. Under international law, these seizures are considered illegal. The U.S. carried out a strike against Daesh members in northwest Nigeria at the request of Nigeria's government, claiming that the group had been targeting Christians in the region. The U.S. military's Africa Command said that the strike was carried out in the Sokoto state at the request of the Nigerian authorities and killed multiple Daesh members. Nigeria's foreign ministry confirmed the strike, saying the attack was carried out as part of ongoing security cooperation with the U.S., involving intelligence sharing and strategic coordination to target armed groups. Nigeria's government has said armed groups target both Muslims and Christians, and U.S. claims that Christians face persecution do not represent the complex security situation. However, the country has agreed to work with the U.S. to bolster its forces against armed groups.
Menggosok baju sekaligus boleh menjimatkan elektrik.
At least 5 people were killed, including 2 Czech tourists, after a helicopter crashed on Mount Kilimanjaro. The country's aviation authority said the cause of the incident is still under investigation. All 5 people on board the aircraft died in the crash, which happened 4,700 meters up by Camp Barafu. In June, the European Union put all Tanzania air transport companies on its at-risk list following a series of accidents. In its statement, the EU cited a shortage of qualified personnel, ineffective oversight processes in flight operations and airworthiness, and non-compliance with international safety standards. In 2022, a plane crashed into Lake Victoria, killing 19 people. In 1999, 10 American tourists were among 12 people killed in a plane crash in the north of the country. A Catholic diocese in Nigeria's north-central region said all school children and teachers taken by gunmen from their school in November have been accounted for and reunited with their families. The clarification comes after some 35 students were initially thought to be unaccounted for after the government ended rescue efforts. The Christian Association of Nigeria said in November that 315 students and staff were kidnapped from St. Mary's Co-educational boarding school in Papuri, Niger State. Some 50 escaped immediately afterwards, and on 7 December, the government secured the release of around 100. The Nigerian government announced the release of 130 more students on 31st December, with a presidential spokesman saying none left in captivity. The Catholic Church said about 35 students who either escaped or had not been abducted in the first place did not show up for a head count immediately after the kidnapping. However, the students later showed up during a second round of head counts. The Catholic Church said that discrepancies were not in any way intended to mislead the public. They resulted from genuine difficulties encountered in a rapidly evolving situation. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered the expansion and modernization of the country's missile production next year and the construction of more factories to meet growing demand. In a visit to munitions factories accompanied by top officials, Kim ordered the factories to meet prospective requirements in the operation of the state missile and artillery forces. Kim said they will need to further expand the overall production capacity in order to keep pace with demand from Pyongyang's armed forces and ordered the building of new munitions plants. The North Korean leader stressed that the missile and shell production sector is of paramount importance in bolstering up the war deterrent. Pyongyang has significantly increased missile testing in recent years. Analysts say this is aimed at improving precision strike capabilities, challenging the US as well as South Korea, and testing weapons before potentially exporting them to Russia. An Australian man has been charged and detained after allegedly posting a message on social media backing the mass shooting on Bondi Beach. A court in Western Australia heard that police found 6 licensed firearms and 4,000 rounds of unsecured ammunition in his home. The suspect was named in local media as 39-year-old Perth man Martin Thomas Glynn. He was charged with the intent to racially harass, carrying or possessing a prohibited weapon, and failing to properly store a firearm or related material. He is remanded in custody until his next court of hearing in February next year. In a social media post, he allegedly expressed 100% support for the 14th December mass shooting at a Jewish festival on Bondi Beach, which killed 15 people. Coming up, Bangladesh PM hopeful Tariq Rahman returns after 17 years in exile. Syria's central bank chief said that the country's currency will be replaced with a revamped version from 1st of January as Damascus tries to relaunch its economy after emerging from the rule of ousted leader Bashar al-Assad last year. Improving the standing of the Syrian pound is among the greatest challenges for Syria's new authorities, who said they would remove 2 zeros and print new banknotes after Assad was removed. Central Bank Chief Abdul Qadir al-Hasriya said that the new Syrian currency is a symbol of financial sovereignty after the liberation and a firm step towards stability and economic recovery. Hasriya said that the move to replace the currency comes at a pivotal national juncture that reflects the beginning of a new economic and monetary era. Since the start of Syria's civil war in 2011, the pound has plunged from 50 to about 10,000 to 11,000 against the greenback. Syrians are forced to carry huge wads of banknotes even for basic needs like grocery shopping. Myanmar's junta will hold the third and final round of its tightly controlled elections on the 25th of January. A statement said on Thursday, just days before the first phase of voting begins. The announcement comes as the military presses ahead with polls widely dismissed by the democracy watchdogs as an attempt to legitimize its rule after the 2021 coup that plunged the country into civil war and left large parts of Myanmar under the control of rebel groups. Democratic leader Aung San Suu Kyi remains jailed since the takeover, while her National League for Democracy party, which won a landslide victory in the 2020 election, has been dissolved. The United Nations has criticized the junta for a sweeping crackdown on dissent in the run-up to the vote. The junta-appointed Union Election Commission said the final round of voting will take place in 63 of the country's 330 townships. The first round of ballots is scheduled for Sunday, with the second round due on 11th January. There will be 57 parties on the ballot on Sunday, but the majority are perceived as being linked to or dependent on the military. Only 6 parties are running nationwide, with the rest only running in a single state or region. Bangladesh Nationalist Party acting chairman Tariq Rahman returned from nearly 17 years in exile on Thursday, a homecoming the party hopes will energize supporters, with Rahman poised to be the top contender for Prime Minister in February. Hundreds of thousands of supporters lined the route from Dhaka's airport to the reception venue, waving party flags and carrying placards, banners and flowers, while chanting slogans welcoming Rahman as senior BNP leaders received him at the airport under tight security. Rahman, 60, the son of ailing former Prime Minister Khalida Zia, has lived in London since 2008 and led the BNP as acting chairman since 2018. His return comes as Bangladesh, a nation of nearly 175 million people, enters a sensitive election period under an interim government led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. The vote is widely seen as crucial to restoring political stability after nearly 2 years of turmoil. While authorities have pledged a free and peaceful election, recent attacks on media outlets and sporadic violence have raised concerns, making Rahman's homecoming a defining moment for the BNP and the country's fragile political transition. Residents of Somalia's capital were casting ballots in local council elections, marking the first time in more than 50 years that voters would directly choose their representatives, a milestone overshadowed by opposition boycotts. About 500,000 people registered to vote for 390 district council seats, with approximately 1,605 candidates competing across 523 polling stations in the capital. Authorities deployed close to 10,000 police officers and imposed a city-wide lockdown, restricting vehicles and pedestrian movement, as well as stopping flights into the city's main airport. Security in Somalia's capital has improved this year, but the government continues to battle the Al-Qaeda-affiliated armed group Al-Shabaab, which carried out a major attack in October. Information Minister Daud Awis described the election as a resurgence of democratic practices after decades without them. Somalia last held direct elections in 1969, months before an October military coup that kept civilians out of power for the next 3 decades. The election also comes as Somalia faces mounting security challenges in regions near the capital. Venezuela is facing a severe flight suspension crisis that has led to challenges in family reunion and severely impacted its tourism industry. Now, this is due to the country's heightened tensions with the U.S. and Donald Trump's threat to shut its airspace. Amid heightened tensions between Venezuela and the U.S., both passengers and the Venezuelan airlines that operate international flights are facing pressure as the New Year holiday is near, with mostly international airlines suspending their operations to and from Venezuela. Traveling abroad for the holiday has become both expensive and cumbersome. A business manager of a travel agency in Caracas said the extensive flight cancellations have led to a significant increase in travel costs, forcing approximately 35% of tourists to cancel their travel plans. In addition, the sharp decline in the number of inbound tourists has led to a significant drop in the occupancy rate at many hotels in Caracas. To attract tourists, numerous local hotels have been forced to implement substantial price reductions. The chief of a prominent anti-disinformation watchdog has sued President Donald Trump's administration over a U.S. visa ban, calling it an unconstitutional attempt to expel the permanent American resident. Imran Ahmad, a British national who heads the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, was among 5 European figures involved in tech regulation, whom the U.S. State Department said would be denied visas. The department accused them of attempting to coerce U.S.-based social media platforms into censoring viewpoints they oppose. Ahmad filed his complaint in the New York District Court against Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Under Secretary of State for Public Diplomacy Sarah Rogers, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. The campaigner holds a U.S. permanent residency, commonly known as a green card. He faces the imminent prospect of unconstitutional arrest, punitive detention, and expulsion from the U.S. However, a district judge granted a temporary restraining order barring Ahmad's arrest, with a further hearing scheduled for Monday. Coming up next, Malaysia book a semi-final spot in ASEAN Under-19 futsal. Police have opened an investigation into allegations of document forgery involving 7 heritage players of the national football squad. Bukit Aman Commercial Crime Investigation Department Director Datuk Rusdi Mohammad Issa said the investigation is being conducted under Section 468 of the Penal Code for forgery with intent to cheat. Datuk Rusdi said 2 statements have been recorded so far to assist in the investigation. The case follows a police report launched by the Football Association of Malaysia at the Petaling Jaya District Police Headquarters. FAM Acting President Datuk Muhammad Yusof Mahdi said the action aligns with a recommendation from the Independent Investigation Committee chaired by former Chief Justice Tun Mat Firauz Sharif. The IIC recently completed its investigation report and submitted 3 recommendations to FAM. Its first recommendation was for FAM to immediately lodge a police report to verify the origin of the suspected documents and identify responsible parties. It also proposed the FAM Disciplinary Committee initiate internal proceedings against the governing body's Secretary General. In addition, the IIC urged FAM to implement monitoring, structural reforms and preventive measures to restore credibility. The Malaysia Under-19 futsal national team secured their place in the semi-finals of the ASEAN Boys Under-19 Futsal Championship 2025, despite suffering a narrow 1-0 defeat to Indonesia in their final Group B match at Nonthaburi Pau Gymnasium, Thailand. Heading into the encounter, Malaysia knew qualification was still within reach following Indonesia's 4-1 victory over Myanmar on the 24th of December, with goal difference and head-to-head record set to play a decisive role. Malaysia was stunned as early as the first minute when Andika Ferdiansyah found the net to give Indonesia a lightning-fast lead. The young Malaysian side quickly regrouped, tightening their defensive structure and disrupting Indonesia's attacking rhythm. Their disciplined approach paid off, with Indonesia unable to extend the advantage before the half-time break. Indonesia returned with greater attacking intent in the second half, pushing aggressively in search of a second goal. However, the scoreline remained unchanged until the final whistle. Although defeated, Malaysia progressed as Group B runners-up, courtesy of a superior head-to-head record against Myanmar, sealing their spot in the knockout stage. Terengganu have arrested head coach Badrul Afzan Razali following the team's poor run in the Super League. In a statement on Thursday, the club confirmed assistant coach Tengku Hazman Raja Hassan will take over as interim head coach until further notice. A statement on the club's official Facebook page expressed TFCSB's highest appreciation for Badrul Afzan's commitment and service. The decision comes with Terengganu currently sitting 5th in the Super League, a campaign marked by inconsistency and damaging defeats. Among the heaviest defeats were a 5-0 thrashing by Brunei DPMM and a 5-2 defeat to Selangor. Despite struggling in the league, Badrul Afzan guided the Turtles to the FA Cup quarterfinals during his tenure. The 49-year-old from Kemaman was appointed head coach on a 1-year term in June 2025. Badrul Afzan had previously served as acting head coach from October 2024 after Tomislav Steinbruckner stepped down amid fan pressure. Morocco coach Walid Regragui has dismissed reports that defender Naif Aguero is injured, saying that the centre-back was fit and ready for tomorrow's Africa Cup of Nations Group A clash against Mali. Regragui confirmed captain Romain Saiz will miss the game with a muscle injury sustained against Comoros in their tournament opener, while fullback Ashraf Hakimi, recently crowned African Player of the Year, is recovering from an ankle problem sustained with Paris Saint-Germain last month and could feature briefly. The coach also heaped praise on 19-year-old defender Abdelhamid Al-Boudal, calling him a great talent. Morocco opened the tournament with a 2-0 win over Comoros and will secure qualification with victory over Mali at Rabat's Prince Moulay Abdullah Stadium. Regragui also reflected on Morocco's history against Mali. He recalled that Morocco beat Mali in the semi-final of AFCON 2004, but had lost to them earlier in Casablanca. He warned that Mali has fast and talented players and said his team must stay very focused. The coach also admitted that Morocco made some mistakes in the previous game, but insisted that matches are won over 90 minutes, not just one half. And what matters in the end is winning. Egypt will also face a stern test tomorrow when they take on South Africa in Group B match with a win set to secure the Pharaohs a place in the round of 16. Now, the Pharaohs opened their group campaign with a dramatic 2-1 victory over Zimbabwe on Monday, thanks to a stoppage time winner from Liverpool star Mohamed Salah. Despite the result, Egypt's performance was unconvincing, with defensive frailties and only 2 goals from numerous scoring opportunities. Earlier on Monday, South Africa defeated Angola by the same score, leaving both sides tied atop Group B with 3 points each. Tomorrow's clash will therefore be decisive for the group standings, with the winner guaranteed progression to the knockout stages. A draw would still keep both teams in contention. Egypt coach Hossam Hassan acknowledged the challenge his team faces against South Africa while praising the quality of the opposition. All Egyptian players are available for selection except Nantes striker Mustafa Mohamed, who is doubtful due to an ankle injury. And that concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, China warns US arms sales to Taiwan, speeding up threat of war. Till then, I'm Mohunapriya. Salam Malaysia Madani. Thank you for your company.